Can we please ask everyone to take their seat? We're about to restart. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our next two sessions. I hope you're all ready, refreshed, to hear from our panel of experts who will share their insights on current global trends through the projects they are working on. But before I hand over to the panel, I would like to invite Michael Gillespie to join us on stage. Michael is the General Secretary of the Teachers' Union of Ireland, and the union is the main sponsor of our conference. So welcome, Michael, and thank you for having us today.
No problem. Good morning. The TUI is delighted to be associated with this, and the TUI in its very bones wants to promote apprenticeships. The TUI started in very small vocational schools around the country where the backbone was apprenticeships, and we've come full circle now, whereas we are a union that integrates all levels of education in terms of apprenticeship. We meet students at post-primary where our teachers and our career guidance teachers are promoting apprenticeships. We are in the ETBs, as my colleague Vivian said, in further education and promoting apprenticeships at level 1 and 2. And also we represent members in the technical universities and the Institute of Technology, where apprentices complete their final apprenticeship education. We want to advocate for and promote a quality apprenticeship system. However, the TUI believe that the centre should be the student. We need to focus on the students. Apprenticeships are not merely vocational training programs, they are pathways to personal growth, professional excellence and economic prosperity. However, there are critical challenges in Ireland that we must address to ensure these opportunities are accessible to all and that they receive the recognition they deserve. One of the most significant barriers facing aspiring apprentices is the challenge of securing employers, as we said this morning. We know that many young individuals bursting with potential and eager to learn face the frustrating reality of being unable to find a suitable employer. This is a grave concern that we must tackle head-on. Governments must work with businesses, large and small, to encourage and incentivise them to take on more apprentices. These young individuals represent our future workforce, and their potential must not be overlooked or underestimated. In Ireland, we also have geographic barriers which present obstacles that many potential apprentices face. It's unjust that where you live can determine your access to educational opportunities. To address this, we must establish apprenticeship programs that are accessible nationwide, no matter how remote your location is. Possible use of satellite campuses can give every Irish citizen equal access to quality apprenticeship programs. Financial constraints, too, often deter talented individuals from pursuing apprenticeships. Less than the minimum wage in their first year is one such obstacle. The cost of travel, materials, living expenses can be prohibitive for many. It's our responsibility as a society to provide financial support, such as scholarships, grants, affordable or 0% interest loans, to ensure that no one is left behind due to financial hardship in apprenticeships. In Ireland, accommodation challenges are yet another obstacle that some apprentices face. Many have to relocate to access their desired programs, and finding affordable, safe housing can be daunting. Collaboration with housing providers, educational institutes and local communities is crucial to address this issue effectively. We must also confront the gender disparity that persists in many apprenticeship fields. It's unacceptable that some apprenticeships are seen as traditionally male or female roles. We must actively encourage and support all individuals, regardless of gender, to pursue their interests and talents, breaking down stereotypes and ensuring equal opportunities. Additionally, we must ensure that apprenticeships are accessible to students with additional educational needs. Every young person deserves a chance to learn, to earn and grow. And we must provide the necessary resources and support to make this a reality for these students. The lack of public sector apprenticeships is a missed opportunity. Public services are the backbone of our society, and we should be offering apprenticeships in these vital areas, just as much as in the private sector. We must work towards achieving parity of esteem between apprenticeships and traditional college courses. Both pathways are valuable and should be regarded as equally valid options for young people, so they can pursue their dreams and achieve their goals. In conclusion, the mission is clear. We must break down barriers that stand in the way of accessible and equitable apprenticeships in Ireland. We must collaborate with employers, educators and communities to create a system where all individuals, regardless of their background, gender or location, can access and thrive in apprenticeship programs. Let's foster a society where every citizen can reach their full potential and contribute to our economy and build a brighter future for Ireland. Together we can make apprenticeships a cornerstone of equality, opportunity and success that we all desire. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. And this is going to give me the easiest transition ever, because I'm going to hand over from one Michael to another Michael. I would like to ask on stage Dr. Michael McGrath, who will be leading us through our next session. The floor is yours, Michael.
Thank you. So, good morning, folks, and you're very welcome to our next session this morning. This session will focus on the role of apprenticeships in the transformative agenda. So, I think we should all be aware that the world of work is changing, and that change is primarily driven by a rapid increase in the sort of cadence of technology change, which is impacting all aspects of our life today. So, in this rapidly changing world, what role will apprenticeships play? If algorithms and AI are doing all the work, will apprenticeships still be relevant? So, to help me answer that question for you today, we have gathered together a very distinguished expert panel to provide us with a global perspective on how AI and other technologies will influence apprenticeships and how we will deliver apprenticeships into the future. So if I may, I would ask my panel to join me on stage, please. Thank you. So I'll start by introducing our panelists today for you. So our first panelist is Shweta Ratanpura, who was a bronze medalist in graphic design technologies at WorldSkills Kaizen in 2019. Shweta is also the WorldSkills Champions Trust representative for Asia for 23 to 24. Professionally, Shweta has worked with as a designer for a number of blue-chip companies, including Samsung, Microsoft, and Google, and has also worked in a freelance capacity as well. Thank you. Welcome. Our next panelist is Priscilla Gatonye. Priscilla is a program officer for inclusion and youth at UNESCO-UNEVOC. She leads initiatives aimed at enhancing the equality and accessibility of skills training within the technical and vocational and educational training sector, or TVET. Our next panelist is Dr. Benveniste. He is the Global Director for Education at the World Bank. Prior to his current role, he was the Human Development Regional Director for Latin America and the Caribbean. Dr. Benveniste has previously worked in a wide variety of World Bank education projects in Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, East Asia, and the Pacific. Our final panelist this morning is Dr. Nader, who is the Executive Vice President for Global Education with Festo. Dr. Imani joined Festo as a global leader in automation and technical education in '92. He has held a variety of roles with Festo Didactic in Germany and has acted as CEO for Festo Didactic in the US and Canada. Dr. Imani also serves WorldSkills International as a member of its advisory board on skills development in Africa since 2017. So you're all very welcome to our session today. I would now like to call Nader to the podium to provide us with some opening keynote remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's really my pleasure to speak today to you about the use of artificial intelligence in education. A really challenging topic for all of us, doubtless, as educators and engaged in the world of education. The future of learning has already begun. We are already witnessing its transformational, thanks to the digital pedagogy and innovative education technology. The history of humanity is in many ways the history of technology and how it changes existing ways of life and creates new ones. So human beings have already undergone massive technological transformations. You just name it: agriculture, cities, industrializations, telegraph, internet. The MIT economists Daru and Simon Johnson mention in their essay Power and Progress examples of how to take advantage of certain technological transformations with unpredictable consequences for generations, some for the good, but also some for the bad. As a techno-optimist, I believe that technology, when really balanced, it is more often for good than bad. Over the course of history, technology transformations brought greater inclusion of the market economy and a better outcome for more people around the world. But now the big question: is AI just one more new thing and we figure out how do we live with it, or this time is a bit different? Will artificial intelligence ever be as powerful as a human brain? And if this threshold would happen, what then indeed? While traditional forms of learning have been practiced for centuries, they have their boundaries as well, and they are often limited to the classroom and training center. Artificial intelligence has transformed the learning environment for learners and teachers alike. It has opened up the world to anyone with an internet connection. It has created a vast number of resources and opportunities for learning and teaching, regardless of location. Some evidence how AI has changed the new way of learning. Firstly, it has automated personalized learning, enhancing the learning experience in many ways, enabling learners to learn at their own pace and according to their own learning style. This means that students learn more effectively with less effort at a pace that matches their individual needs. Secondly, AI has enabled teachers to access vast amounts of data, audio, video, and virtual resources, where learners can interact with virtual objects and consequently acquire practical knowledge as part of the job learning for skills development. This will help them develop the most appropriate and demand-driven curriculum, and even more, the most in-demand skills that meet learners' needs. AI can provide insight on the labor market and suggest areas of training that are most likely to lead to employment. Moreover, AI has enabled the creation of chatbots, which are becoming increasingly popular in the education sector. Chatbots act as virtual tutors, answering students' questions anytime, anywhere, providing fast and accurate answers. Thanks to the chatbots, students don't have to wait for teachers to be available to help them, leaving room for more mentoring and more coaching. Finally, AI can be used to provide career guidance, counseling to learners by analyzing their skills, their aptitudes, their interests, and job market trends. AI could help measure the effectiveness and efficiency of skills, which could give a competitive edge in workforce development in the industry to match the labor market demand. However, as we embrace AI in education, we must not forget the human touch of learning. In 2023, when human emotions come into the game, that possibly would be the end of the AI in education. Therefore, we should really use AI to support and enhance human experiences, human learners and teachers' experiences, but not really replace them. Social skills and emotion play an important role in the learning process that cannot be ignored. We must strive to integrate emotional intelligence with artificial intelligence to create a holistic approach to learning. As AI and machine learning transform the way we learn, we must not forget the value of human engagement in our educational and professional developments. So from my point of view and in conclusion, with the increasing use of generative AI in education, the future of learning looks more exciting than ever. The world is changing, and AI is changing the way we learn. And AI integration can help overcome the lack of facilities and teachers, creating a school without walls, particularly of a great interest in developing countries like in Africa, like in America, and also Asia, where access to quality education for human development remains crucial. The future of learning is here, and we should see AI as a tool to enhance and support our learning. Education is an essential aspect of the human development. By harnessing the capabilities of AI, we can make education more accessible, more efficient, and most cost-effective. While doing so, I dare to believe that no one will be left behind. We will be there by 2030, where SDG number 4 is most dear to all of us. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Nader, for your thought-provoking keynote. Actually, one thing I found very interesting there in your remarks is the potential for AI to, I suppose, better democratize access to training, particularly for lower and middle-income countries. I think that's a very positive, and I suppose certainly an opportunity for positive disruption within the education and training sector. I'd like to turn to my panel now and get some initial thoughts to Nader's keynote. And I suppose my opening questions to you are based around what do you think will be the impact of AI? Do you agree with Nader's thesis? And what skills do you think apprenticeships can bring that cannot be easily replicated or replaced by technology? So maybe I'll start with you, Lewis.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Nader, for a great keynote. So AI is here, and it's already revolutionizing the way we think, the way we work, the types of tools that we have available, and so we all need to adapt and adopt and see how be part of this process of how we can contribute and take advantage of the opportunity that AI is giving us. I mean, I think that I fully agree that AI has great potential to democratize and to enhance the experience of learners that have not access. It also has the potential of increasing inequality of those who have access and those who do not, those who have the skills to be able to take advantage of these tools and those that do not. So again, I think that it's really important for us to think through carefully how to ensure that access is equally distributed. Now also, to your question, Michael, there are things that AI is great at. It has the great capacity of crunching large amounts of data and being able to provide insights from that. It has the advantage of being able to process all kinds of information and produce outputs that are very credible. I'm coming from the US, where for the past few months, has been a writer's strike, and they're all worried about sort of how AI will impact their jobs. But at the same time, there are lots of things that AI cannot do. It's not good at critical thinking. It's not good at entrepreneurship. It's not good at interpersonal skills. So in that sense, the role that apprenticeships will have to being able to impart those skills and then to ensure that these skills are properly nurtured, and then being able to do those complementary processes by which we can take advantage of AI as a tool, and at the same time we potentiate the human skills.
Thank you, Daru. If I may come to you, Priscilla.
Okay, thank you for that, and thank you for this invitation. It's a great opportunity for me to be sitting here today. And when I think about AI, what comes to mind is, you remember there was a billboard that came out. It was a billboard that was set behind a building under construction, and it had letters on it from ChatGPT saying that, ChatGPT, could you finish this building? Do you remember that? And this was really exemplifying the fact that AI can do so much, but it can't do everything. So if you think about the possibilities of AI in construction, for example, we know that AI can really help in streamlining the processes. The project management bit of it can be done very well. If you think about the process flows can be done. But at the end of the day, AI is not going to fix your drainage. It's not going to do the plumbing. And this has actually led us to really think about what are the features, what are the kind of skills that we need to work on that are going to remain relevant as we move ahead. And I want to agree with you and the keynote speech because if you think about the skills on critical thinking, think about skilled workmanship that is really benefited, or you actually gain the skills from years and years of experience where you gain good judgment on different activities. Really, you cannot replace that by AI. And some of the values that we see that are very important, the values of ethics, the values of empathy, morality, really that contribute to the wholesomeness of individual in skill development, they cannot be replaced. And just to give an example of this, we concluded the WorldSkills Youth Program just recently, and we asked young people to tell us what are the most important skills for them. And surprisingly, communication and interpersonal skills featured as the most important skills for them, followed by technical skills and digital skills. So we can really see that you can gain all the skills that you want as a technical expert, but you need to be able to integrate, you need to be able to engage with people, you need to be able to communicate better. So as we move ahead to AI, those are some of the skills that we have to think about. How do we empower these interpersonal skills? How do we continue to show that relevant skills that are not based on AI are still going to remain relevant?
Thank you, Priscilla. Shweta, if I may come to you now.
So I think the other speakers answered your second question really well. So I have two comments. One, I would say that we do not realize that the intervention of AI and technology is also indirectly affecting the diversity. It is creating safer environments for women, for people with disabilities, and is giving way for more inclusion. The second note, on a lighter hand, I would say there's a running joke between artists and designers that I don't want AI to make art. I want it to do my chores so that I can make art. So yes, setting rules for how it's going forward is really important of the limitations and what we want this technology to be able to do further ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. And you really actually touched there on an interesting area that certainly has been impacted by AI, and that area of graphics and so forth. So my question to you there, Shweta, is, graphic design is one of the many areas where AI has been targeted for tools. So you have tools such as DALL-E 2 and Midjourney, which you're probably familiar with, and you've this whole concept now of deep fake and so forth. So certainly has been an area that has been impacted by AI. So do you think that's true? I suppose has the role of the graphic designer been supplanted by AI? And how do you think the broader creative community need to adapt in this new world? And I suppose my final element of that then question is, do you think potentially, has AI the capability to replace unique qualities, human qualities of inspiration and creativity?
So let me answer that with an example. Let's say there's a bakery here in Ireland, and it is just starting. It's looking for a logo, a branding for itself. Now, typically, the owner of the bakery would approach a graphic designer and ask them to make the design for them. But in the scenario where they're not able to find someone who perfectly fits their needs, for example, it really happens a lot. There are people that come to me and they say that we tried to work with another designer, but it didn't work out really well. The technology today, right now, it exists, is that you could go on a website, you could tell it that I have a bakery, it's in Dublin, it's in Ireland, I want the branding to be really traditional. It could, or you could say it could be fun. So you describe the qualities, and the output given to you is a finished logo. Okay, so now you may say that, is this technology replacing the graphic designers? But I want to ask, who is it that is creating this technology? Who is creating this website? It is us designers who have adapted to the technology. You know, we're working on creating the website that is in turn used by the consumers. So in a way, you could say that it's replacing the mass production of this, but it is really important for young people to be able to adapt to the technologies coming in, keep in line with AI, and work with it so that you can create better systems in a way where we're doing our work. So the principles, the basic principles, of graphic design, for example, are really useful in making something like that. So no, AI would not be replacing those, but maybe it would replace a lot of manual work.
And thank you, Shweta. So if I interpret you correctly, really what you're saying is that AI is just really changing the skills profile of graphic designers so that they, so they can properly utilize the technology as opposed to technology replacing them. If I may ask then a follow-on question, Shweta. The current generation is often referred to as digital natives, or certainly have embraced digital as part of their day-to-day lives. Their online presence, they have their mobile phones stuck in their hand all day long. But my question really is, how do we balance, the younger generation's enthusiasm for the adoption and utilization of these technologies with the need, to gain high-quality, transferable skills that that they can apply in the real world?
My answer would be with good training systems. Now, it is very common that the training systems that exist are sort of out of date, that the young people coming to these universities, to these training programs, are not really learning what is required in the industry because the systems or the education is not keeping up to date with the inventions, the AI coming in. So, but like I mentioned earlier, we do need the basics as well. So we need a mix of experienced faculty and the young blood who is more adaptive to the technology. And the training systems need to be regularly updated. We focus a lot on, the incentivization of to attract young people to these programs, but we really forget to focus on the trainers because that is equally important to be able to achieve this.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a key, and again, a key challenge with training education is how the trainers can, maintain their skills with a rapidly, evolving technology environment. Actually, then, Priscilla, if I come to you again, and that's similar question, I suppose, is again, how do we balance the use of technology with the acquisition of skills in in our younger generation?
Okay. So when I think about the enthusiasm that we all had when AI came out, remember the ChatGPT enthusiasm, and everybody wanted to use emails, he wanted to create PowerPoints with ChatGPT. But then we quickly learned that it's not about the solution, it's about providing the right question. And this really created a new career around prompters, technology prompters, and it's become such an important factor to ChatGPT or any kind of AI the right questions. So this really brings us back to how do we really understand how to ask the right questions, and how can we know when AI is providing training bias or providing answers that are not correct. So it comes back to education. It's about quality of education and what we need to facilitate when it comes to development of skills for young people. So at the heart of quality education, it's having a learner-centered approach to education, where you have to train trainers to respond to the needs of learners. And trainers have become so excluded from digitalization, especially when they're facing a class full of ChatGPT savvy students, Gen Z and Alpha students. And this exclusion in teachers is really bringing a huge gap in understanding how can we draw quality. So quality also looks at policies that are put in place to respond to the needs of the market condition, as well as having experimental and experiential training to provide that hands-on training for good quality. So when I think about how do we balance this enthusiasm as well as creating quality TVET, it all comes back to training. And I have to agree with what Sylvester said. It's about training the teachers, giving them the right teaching skills, upskilling and lifelong learning. And I can give an example of what we've done at UNESCO-UNEVOC. We have a team at centers of around 220 centers. And one of the programs that we are implementing is called the digital transformation, where we train teachers from different regions to come together and share the knowledge on how to adapt to different technologies in terms of tools, as well as on generating their own content on themselves. So we have an ongoing project. It's called the Co-Action Initiative. We have Shenzhen Polytechnic in China, and working with Indonesia, Nigeria, and Pakistan, as well as Malaysia. So I think that is a good balance.
Okay, thank you very much, Priscilla. Nader, if I just, again, the similar question, how do you think we get that balance?
I think leaving no one behind, it means, of course, all those millions and millions of learners that we need to take on board, but also all those hundreds of thousands of teachers that we need also to take on board in this digital transformation. So if really we are talking about digital transformation of education worldwide, we need also to pay attention to the two main protagonists of the education. So coming back to the learners, I think, and I would like to join my fellow panelists, Priscilla, on this critical thinking and also the way that you are using digital tools. I was having a discussion 2 weeks ago with the head of Apprenticeship Center of Mercedes in Stuttgart about the way that they are using the artificial intelligence in their learning path and in learning activities. And to my big surprise was actually that to say, well, the digital native doesn't mean necessarily that they are intelligently using all these digital tools. So digital education is not about TikTok, is not about Instagram, it's about the entire spectrum of different tools that you have at your disposal. So, and this is what I call it digital pedagogy. So we need really to understand that when you're using digital tools, you are using a completely different setup of education as we were using actually a couple of years ago in a more classical way. So this digital pedagogy needs to be taken into the consideration for the learners, but also for the teachers. And this is the second protagonist of education. We need also to bring to the teachers how to use this digital technology in the best possible way so that we are also guaranteeing this efficiency and effectiveness of digital education worldwide. So I believe that wherever we are, whether we are in Europe or in Asia or wherever, we need really to pay attention that digital education is not just a let's say, automatic. So it needs a kind of reflection from policy making and from the way that we are treating the different, let's say, stakeholders in education.
Thank you, Nader. I think you actually make a really critical point, because AI is not a solution, it's a tool. And it's like any tool, you you get a different result depending on what way you use the tool. So I think that's an absolutely critical point with respect to using AI in education. Maybe if we can, excuse me, if we can change tack just a tiny little bit. Lewis, I suppose my question for you regarding AI and related technology is, can they be leveraged to support education and apprenticeships? And in particular, can they be effectively used to fill teaching and training gaps? And I think Nader already referred to that in his keynote remarks.
Absolutely. So again, that's one of the great promises of AI and these new technologies. It is often said that technical vocational education or apprenticeships are expensive. Just to be able to set them up, the type of training, the type of equipment that they require, they tend to be quite expensive. On the other hand, so I think that AI, augmented reality tools, virtual reality tools, all have the potential to diminish the cost of training. And given that we live in a world where the pace of change is fast, again, these tools are much more adaptable in order to support different types of upskilling, reskilling, green skilling than traditional face-to-face learning programs. And in that also sense, the opportunity that they provide is also to give training in circumstances where, for example, as with the development of electric cars, again, so the absorption of these new technologies in developing countries might not be as fast as in Europe or North America. That said, though, with the use of, for example, augmented reality or virtual reality labs, these types of skills can begin to be brought into the developing world, so that as the market changes, the skills are there for the technology absorption to take place. Another space, for example, is, we're working in a project in Ecuador where, for example, the province of Santo Domingo is rapidly changing in its agriculture, in its construction, in its manufacturing, all requiring heavy machinery. Again, for those of you out there in the audience probably know working with heavy machinery a lot more than I do, but sort of a big risk is labor accidents. And so again, this is where, for example, virtual reality labs can help prepare young workers into how to get acquainted with these machineries, get acquainted with protocols for safe handling, for procedures for working in a way that again can diminish significantly the risks that these new technological changes can bring about.
Thank you, Lewis. And yes, absolutely, you're seeing a growing utilization of those sort of simulations in VR and so forth as part of the kind of education training package. But I think we also have to be careful that we combine those VRs, whatever, still with that hands-on world experience. Like I often use the analogy that we train aircraft pilots in simulators, but we don't qualify them until they can land the real thing. So it's getting that balance, of course, between the two. If I think in our previous session, referred to, certainly in Ireland, how we have developed apprenticeship programs now which range from certificate level all the way now to PhD level awards. So from a global bank perspective, how do you see the future of apprenticeships in the age of technology-driven job displacements, which we're seeing a lot of, and I suppose also creation of new jobs? And in particular, do you see that impacting low and middle income countries?
I mean, the impact is global, is everywhere. So, there's no escape from it. Again, I think that maybe I'll start by sharing technical vocational education are critical, but they sit atop foundational skills. So it's really important that in all kinds of training, so we continue to nurture and strengthen foundational skills, because ultimately that's what enables people to reinvent themselves. Oftentimes, again, the literature suggests that technical vocational education has very high of returns at the beginning, but then over the lifetime, those returns begin to diminish. And that's partially because of the difficulties of people in being able to adapt and change over the course of the lifetime in a world where work can't change rapidly. Now, in the ways in which sort of apprenticeships can sort of support this transversality, at the same time being able to go into deeper on the technical types of domains, really, so that's where the balance really becomes critical. And then, sort of, I think that we see more and more that with in a world where work is changing rapidly, technical and vocational skills are having greater and greater popularity, and so being able to develop high-quality technical training programs, where there is a system. Where the quality assurance, where the preparation of teachers, where the accreditation process, where the support of from learning to earning, the school to work transitions are all enabled. Again, sort of has the potential to greatly sort of deepen the impact and expand the opportunities that people have in this kind of learning schemes.
Actually, maybe if I just come to you, Nader, very, very quickly. Just your comments. Obviously, working in the industry sector. How do you see these technologies affecting jobs, and whether we're replacing jobs and creating new jobs?
Well, usually the introduction of new technologies, again, when it's well balanced, it may have a kind of negative impact in terms of job disparition, but it's actually with a bit of time, it's creating new ones. And these phenomena actually can be seen in the industrial sector even faster when it comes to, for example, manufacturing sector. So the use of artificial intelligence in the manufacturing sectors may, at the first glance, create a kind of change in terms of number of people and also the skills of the people that you may need in this way. But also at the same time, it also provides you a massive competitive advantage in terms of competition, in terms of global reach out to your productions, etc. So that actually creating new possibilities for job creations, but also at the same time, from the, let's say, the point of view of the manufacturing, new position or new job position that would be creators. Like, for example, data protections or technicians that they are really there for cybersecurity protections and so on. Those are jobs that they were not existing, but at the same time, they are also at the same time created. So basically, the impact of new technology, it is not having only a negative, but also positive impact on the labor market. And I would just say this is nothing new. We have always said and seen this impact of new technology changing. So it's not the technology which is actually in question, it's the way that we are using this technology from the societal point of view and the labor market point of view. How do we use it for a better use of the humanity?
Okay. Thank you, Nader. If I may now focus a little bit on TVET, and if I can come to you, Priscilla. So UNEVOC is UNESCO's designated center for technical and vocational and educational training. And I suppose it has a very strong focus on enhancing apprenticeships across its vast networks of TVET centres. And I think you already alluded to, I think globally it's about 220 different partner centres. So my question for you is, in your opinion, what is the role of apprenticeships in adapting TVET to the transformative agenda?
So, as we said, UNESCO-UNEVOC is the International Center for TVET, and our work really is focusing on transitioning TVET into a just transition, focusing on the fifth industrial revolution. So we look at it at a multi-stakeholders level, where we work with different centers, which, as you said, we have 232 actually centers that are composed of national bodies, ministries, TVET providers, as well as research centers. And we collaborate together in developing of content, developing of educational materials, as well as sharing the same materials with TVET centers at different levels and located in different places. So to answer to the just transition, we are implementing the UNESCO-UNEVOC's UNESCO's new strategy that really focuses on 3 areas. The area number 1 is to develop individual skills to live, learn, and also work. And the next, and also we're working on developing skills for inclusive and sustainable economies, as well as skills for inclusive and peaceful societies. So this really takes us back, takes us to the 5th industrial revolution, where we are looking at well-being and other aspects. So we take a stakeholders approach, and in fulfilling this just transition, what we try to do is to develop apprenticeship opportunities that are going to facilitate quality education. So I can give an example of some of the things that we are doing. Using our network, we are able to reach so many individuals, and we develop these skills and really work with different stakeholders, including Festo, who is here with us today. We have worked with different multi-stakeholders just to come up with apprenticeship programs. I can give an example of a program that is currently ongoing. It's called the Global Skills Academy, where we collaborate with multi-stakeholders, DAX-listed companies, to come up and provide these mentorship programs, career guidance, as well as give apprenticeship positions to different sectors. So we also work with governments to facilitate SME, small and medium enterprises, to just provide these informal sorts of apprenticeships in different countries where they don't have access to formal apprenticeships. And secondly, in terms of improving the accessibility and also the apprenticeship of young people, we really try to promote youth agency in terms of articulation and representation by allowing them to lead in some of the programs that we do. So, for example, I talked earlier about the World Youth Skill Day that we just had, where we asked young people to tell us what are their priorities. We also do this in terms of asking for competitions, like we have an ongoing competition, photo competition, that you can exemplify your role as a young person on TVET and what you're able to achieve, including inclusion as well as greening economy. And at the same time, we provide opportunities for young people to come on board and to talk to us through career guidance, through mentorship, and that school-to-work transition. So there are so many ways in which quality TVET can be adapted, but as UNEVOC being an international center, we look at it at an ecosystem approach, where we require a lot of support and collaboration from different stakeholders to make sure apprenticeship programs are beneficial and relevant to the market condition.
Thank you, Priscilla. I think you make a very important point. It's about that ecosystem engagement in getting all the key stakeholders involved and in behind the initiatives. Nader, if I just come to you for a second and ask you again to put on your industry hat, so to speak. In your opinion, are there any key actions or initiatives that we should consider to support companies and their apprentices to improve the quality of the learning experience?
Yes, I think our experience in introduction of AI-supported learning path in the industry has been very positive and is very welcoming. We just mentioned that a couple of times. The force of AI is the systematic, is let's say the access to the content on the right spot, on the right moment for the right individuals. And this is exactly what we do need in the industry. Basically, when you are in a certain position and you just need upskilling, reskilling, so you are very much in the professional context, and you just need to bring the right quantity of education for the person in order to be in position to exercise the job of the person that is supposed to fulfill. And and also the fact that the AI is feeling the lack of tutorship in the industry, it is also has a possibility to really bring the information that the kind of industry segment is really asking for, understanding, also for the change of the industry segment that is going through, to the right moment and the right spot to the right individual. So it is very much welcoming. And but I would like to bring one more point in terms of difference: the content. So the content that you are offering to the industry needs to be adapted and adequate for the individuals. When you are in the upskilling and reskilling of the adult education, so lifelong learning, you are to be more applied and application-oriented than when you are, for example, in the apprenticeship program, like youngsters, in the more classical way. So this is something that we need to understand and we need to consider when it comes to designing an education program for an adult in the industrial context.
Thank you, dear. I think you make a really, really important point in terms of the necessity for education training to become more adaptable, particularly in the era where jobs are technology driven and so forth, and they're evolving at a rapid cadence. The education and training needs to be able to match that cadence of change, in order to, remain relevant. Just quickly, if I might come to you, Lewis, any thoughts from a worldback perspective on, how the role of apprenticeships and the transformative agenda?
I mean, I think that in terms of the evolution of the sector, it's really key. And I think that, I really appreciated the keynote this morning that gave us sort of the long-term view of how the Irish vocational education and training sector has evolved. And I think that as we look at the here and now, sort of the rise of, for example, micro-credentialing, the rise of sort of mechanisms by which people can sort of accumulate credits over time, and then sort of that gives them access to different types of training opportunities, the ways in which sort of, finding sort of alternative paths, career paths by which sort of, the vocational education training system provides. I think these are all critical ways in which the sector as a whole needs to adapt in order to be more responsive to private sector needs, in order to enhance the quality of the offer of the trainings themselves, in order to sort of ensure that sort of the supply matches the demand at the location where the training is needed. So all of these are really critical elements by which the systems have to become more adaptable, more flexible in a world, as I said before, that's rapidly changing, and it will continue to change more and more. So that adaptability of the training education system is something that I think that it's relatively new in its history. It used to be quite rigid and quite, it operated in its own channel. And now I think that we see much greater diversity of programming, much greater integration with the private sector. We see the types of duration these programs have. It's very flexible, that adapts to people's lives. All of these are very important, positive developments from a sectoral perspective.
Thank you, Darius. Shweta, if I may come to you now, and maybe just one final question on TVET. And we've heard from Priscilla all of the excellent work that UNEVOC are doing in that area. And I suppose ultimately TVET is not about systems per se, but really I suppose focuses on learners. Okay, and my question for you really is, how do you think younger people can play a role in driving positive change in learning and training?
Like I mentioned earlier, we do need younger people also to come back to the system, not just as learners, but as trainers, because we need their experience of being able to adapt to all these changes, because they do it very easily, more than the experienced folk. So we need them to come back as trainers, to be integrated into the system, so that the next generation can adapt more easily to the further changes coming in. So as for TUH systems, we spoke about continuously adapting, and he did mention that it's not the technology that's the change. You know, it's something constant that we've been doing since industrialization. We've been adapting, we've been changing our methods of learning, and it's just that with the onset of AI, it was too sudden, and that is why there is some gap between adapting to it or changing to it. So I would say that it would be a great idea to have the young people come back and also contribute to the system in ways as trainers, as teachers.
Thank you. And I think you make an important point again, and I suppose if I was to interpret you correctly, it's really about, I suppose, developing or encouraging a change mindset. You know, that young people, it's going to be about lifelong learning. It's going to be continuously acquiring new skills and so forth. You won't qualify to be an it anymore. You're going to have multiple careers, and you have to have that change mindset. And you might, so we need to start young, I suppose, to make that happen. If I might come to you, Lewis, for just any final quick comments, similarly on the role young people will have in that transformative agenda.
Look, in many parts of the world, youth unemployment is a huge concern, and in that sense, I think that it's part of a reflection of the failure of technical, vocational, and training systems to respond to youth needs. And so, like and also we need to think about systems where, like, again, the need to upskill, reskill, green skill will continue and will be greater and greater over time. So taking into consideration youth perspectives, being able to attune so the relationship of the labor market to the training processes is really sort of critical to have an adaptable training system that responds to the needs of youth.
Any final comments?
Yeah, I'd like just to continue on that thread of thinking and really talk about so many roles that young people can play when it comes to development of skills and transition into the future. And what I see with AI now is the need for young people to not only become consumers of knowledge, but also producers of knowledge. And this will be driven by their level of curiosity, the level of challenging injustices in education, and also speaking out on some of the things that are important for their skill development. And if I can maybe talk in hashtag language, we've seen that the hashtag be a change maker, hashtag be a lifelong learner, hashtag be a voice of change. So after you are able to develop these opportunities, be a change maker so that you become a champion for justice. So I think that is a role they should play.
Thank you, Priscilla. Nader, any final comments?
Yes. If you look at the statistic of UNESCO and you just find out that this country is spending 5% of the GDP on education and the other one is 7%, and maybe the other one 3%, and you just try to dig out what are these 3%, 7%, 5%, and you realize that actually the bulk of the budget of education is going for salaries, for teachers, and the second part, the main part of the budget is really for building and facilities, and maybe the last one is coming to, let's say, training solutions, educational solutions that's really supporting educational path for individuals. Then you just realize how challenging it is for the world to address the issue of education of the number of billions of people that we are. And here we have an opportunity. We have the AI, we do agree, is not, let's say, a perfect full solution, but it is an excellent solution that really can help us. And I try to point out on this topic, the schools without wall. It is a reality. It is within our reach. Let's imagine that a part of education is not necessarily taking place within a physical school where we really need a building, we really need a teacher, we really need everything. Maybe the school could be taken place in the cyberspace, or at least part of it. Maybe the final part of it, the part where you really have to have this interaction with humanity and the humans as a professor and teachers and tutors and you name it. Maybe this part could really be taken place in the school. But if you do so, you are all of a sudden creating a huge ability for the education system worldwide to offer better and more quality education for everyone. Thank
you very much. Thank you, Nader. So that's the end of our formal discussion. We now have time to throw it open to the floor and hopefully take a few questions. So do we have any questions from the floor? I think we have one over here to start with.
Hi, good morning. I am Sonia. I am from the Champions Trust and a representative for the Americas. I have a question regarding inclusion. So I am curious to know how can we make it appealing for women, young women, mature women to be a part of apprenticeships in the male-dominant areas?
Okay. So let me just take it because I deal a lot in inclusion. And some of the things that we think about in inclusion is, first of all, understanding the barriers that lead to access. So understanding and breaking these barriers for women in accessing TVET, especially in STEM-related TVET, is very important. And another aspect that has come to be very important is the role modeling. So we talk about TVET, and the perception of TVET is about image shaping. So once you think about TVET, you need to shape that image by allowing young people to be mentored and have role models who come from backgrounds that they have also come from. So this is like if you're from marginalized communities, you want someone who is going to mentor you from such a background so that you can see it's possible, that image shaping. So with that and breaking the barriers, you're able to navigate closer towards inclusion and equity in education.
Okay, thank you.
Another question here in the front.
My name is Michael Fong. I'm from Hong Kong, and I've been involved in apprenticeship for some time. I just wonder, normally we have a dilemma of striking the balance between craft-based apprenticeship and technology-based apprenticeship, because technology is advancing. Just like Priscilla mentioned about, there are more people involved in technology, but say for example, if the apprenticeship is 3 to 4 years in Ireland, and it takes just maybe 2 years to change all the things maybe drastically, and how are we going to deal with this, especially from the UNEVOC point of view, and also the other experts on stage? And I know a company who has a team of programmers with 30 persons working, and now with the ChatGPT, they only need about 6. 2 is to ask the right question. 2 is to check the programming language. And another 2 is the tester. And so now, if the apprenticeship is on programming, then how come, or how to do with the other 20 odds that they will lost their jobs? And it's a very interesting question in apprenticeship, especially how to strike the balance between craft-based apprenticeship and technology-based apprenticeship. Thank you. Back to you.
Okay, I think you mentioned UNEVOC, so I'm going to give it a try, I think with AI, we're all learning about how to balance these things. And I can give, I think it's a question that you asked in the panel earlier, that how do we see the future of apprenticeships, especially with the market conditions changing so fast? And I think one of the answers that we can look at is to look at how the market and the industries respond to drastic changes. And they respond through agility. They form teams that they can iterate on different aspects. And I think that's how TVET and apprenticeship are going to look like in future, where we have to become very agile in solutions that we provide so that we keep up with the changing market conditions, as well as just looking at that role of young people creating knowledge as well. Because as you say, the balance between technical apprenticeships and also the craftsmanship as well, it's something that needs to be done collaboratively and looking at different ways where the knowledge, and I said earlier that learners and even institutions and TVET, they should not focus on just being consumers of knowledge, but also producers of knowledge, so that they actively work on learning together with the industries so that they can actively contribute towards it. I think somehow that answers it, if someone else wants to go.
Creative destruction of jobs historically has always happened. Yeah, so this is not something new. There's always, technologies have always continued to evolve, and jobs disappeared, but new jobs were created. I think that the challenge is to ensure how to support and protect workers in old industries that sort of find themselves somehow out of it, and then therefore the training system becomes critical to sort of again support those workers, to give them the skills necessary to find new avenues of employment, and then at the same time to ensure that the training system is responsible enough, adaptable enough to be able to keep up with technological change. If a firm, if a training program is 4 years long and the technology is evolving every 2 years, obviously that training is obsolete. It won't be useful. It won't be necessary. So again, I think that to ensure that the training systems are adaptable enough, responsive enough, attuned to the labor market needs, that follow up sort of how graduates sort of perform in the labor market, are all really critical elements to ensure that we have a training program that satisfies the needs of both workers as well as enterprises.
Thank you, Luz. I think we have time for just one final question.
Hello, my name is Victor. I'm from WorldSkills Romania, and my question is related to a paradox, I would say. On one hand, you mentioned the unemployment, which in some countries is pretty high, like almost 15% in Spain. But we deal with another issue, which is the youth which are not in employment, education, or training, which in Spain also, for example, is almost 20%. Do we have a solution in the vocational education and training field for this paradox, for this issue, or in, I don't know, technology, AI development, or should we look to other kinds of solutions? I'm questioning the limits of vocational education and training. Can we deal with such issues in VET or not?
Maybe I'll try to address your question with the kind of experience you're running right now. There is a huge development currently in smart agriculture. I know that Spain, for example, you just took the example of Spain, it's a massive, it's a country with a massive agricultural force and a lot of people working in the sector. And we are in cooperation with the Farm Tech Society. That's an association in Brussels that represents vertical farming companies around the world. And this domain is really moving, it's really boosting. I was interacting with the vice president of the associations, and she was really very much saying that the first challenge you are having is actually not the market. The market is really asking for the product. So the lady that I'm just talking to, she's supplying 5% of the salads of the state of Ohio. And as per her statement, the very first challenge is the asset, is investment, is the capital. But the very much second challenge is the skilled workforce. And here we are. We are talking about a huge chapter of the humanity in terms of agriculture, and I would just say a smart agriculture is decarbonized agriculture. It's an agriculture that bring the product close to the consumer, reducing the supply chain, etc. So fantastic for the future, and also very much in demand in the sectors of the skilled workforce. So it's really up to us as educators, as people that are passionate about education and working about TVET, that what would be our solution in terms of designing new professions. So I've been talking to some of the people here sitting in this room that maybe we can benchmark ideas about new skills for the future, what the humanity needs in terms of let's say, sectors that will really make our life also in a sustainable manner, green, and at the same time also resilient, so that we are having a better future prepared through a better TVET.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Lewis. Unfortunately, our session is now at an end, so I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly found it informative. I would like to extend a Goramina Mahagat to my panelists, or a very large thank you, and for your insights and your expert knowledge that you've shared with us today. I think the debate around the role of AI and other technologies in education, I think is only really starting, and is something I think that we're sure to return to on a regular basis. And I think there's definitely interesting times ahead of us. So again, I would like to thank my panelists this morning who tackled all the difficult questions. Thank you very much. So finally, the next session, Be Change Maker Pitch, is going to follow on immediately from this session. And thank you very much for your attention and your contributions this morning.
Thank you very much, Michael, for guiding us through this interesting topic with